Hi there, I'm Barbara Turley and you're watching another episode of Feminine Wealth TV, the show that uncovers the diamond tips on creating truly conscious wealth from change makers, world shakers and wealth creators. Now I'm joined today on the show by a total change maker, someone who's built bringing the resources of passion and money together to create massive philanthropic change in our world. Please welcome to the show the CEO of the Funding Network, Lisa Cotton. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Good morning, welcome.
So, you know, when I first met you, I accidentally was invited to one of your funding nights, and I was just so amazed by the model that you've built and really wanted to get you on the show. So just first of all, tell us a little bit about the Funding Network and particularly the mission and the philosophy behind it.
Sure, yeah. Well, look, the philosophy is that anybody can get involved in giving back, and the Funding Network is a collective giving model. We run events where social entrepreneurs come and pitch for funding in front of an audience of around 100 people. And the whole philosophy is really to democratize philanthropy, make it fun, make it informative, but make it really effective to enable people to make a difference in the community.
Yeah, and you know, when I went along to the event, I mean, this was an event, there was probably 200 people in the room, and it was a lot of fun. And what I really noticed was I was actually happened to be sitting beside someone who was controlling quite a large charitable trust.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I was sitting beside somebody who just was actually giving their time.
Yes.
And I loved how you've moulded that together. How did you sort of bring all this together and come up with this idea?
Well, we saw the model, this is my co-founder, in the UK. And TFN in the UK has been going for about 11 years. We thought it would really work here because there's a lot of people who want to give, but they have no idea where to look, who to speak to,
and how to do it without giving up your own, blowing yourself up, if you know what I mean, like blowing up your own energy or money.
Exactly,
or how do you give?
Get within their capacity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as you said, at that night, at that particular event, you had high net worth individuals and you had ordinary Australians who together really signify, I think really demonstrate the power of this model to democratise philanthropy, and that's the lovely thing. It's a very egalitarian model.
Yeah, you don't have to be super wealthy to actually get involved in it. Obviously, if you are, that's huge.
Great.
That's massive.
That's
but
great.
you can also give in other ways.
Yeah, and look, even people who that do have reasonable wealth just love this because it is like angel investing. It is coming along, seeing some really inspirational pitches and having the ability to invest in those programs. So it's a great platform for them. And conversely, for the pitching organisations, these small grassroots charities, the model provides a fantastic platform for them to have a voice, to access and be in front of an audience they would never ordinarily get to en masse efficiently.
So you've kind of built a platform to actually bring these two, the giving the organisations that create change with the giving or whatever they're doing in society, with people who have resources like money, energy, time, mentorship, whatever, and bring them together in a forum. And it's a fun forum as well.
It is.
It reminds me of the TED Talks. It's like the 6 minute. You've got 6 minute chance to pitch your idea.
That's right. That's right. And it is a bit. It's a combination of TED Talks, a telethon. Dragon's Den in the UK.
That's right,
it's a blend of those, but it's done in such a way that it's very kind of gently facilitated. It's facilitated with great care, and the projects themselves are clearly very nervous when they get up.
But they do a good job.
They do
very
fantastic.
Passionate.
It's a passion that passion and the authenticity that gets them through. Some of them may not be brilliant presenters, but they are so passionate and driven with purpose that you can't help but want to support them.
Yeah, and they walk away with the money and the resources they need at the end of the night as well.
They do.
To take things to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. And it's often not just about the money. The money is really important for them to sort of get to the next stage of growth. But the resources that comes post those events are equally important. So some of them have got additional board members, volunteers, in-kind support, maybe financial services, could be
and of course the
support.
networks then that come from mentors or people sitting on boards are massive, so it can open up a lot of doors. So
it's about building communities of interest around common areas of common interest. So they do that often post the events. That we connect people who want to connect directly to those charities, so to offer them support, and that's the power of the model. It's about creating these affinity groups, and because it's a very social event, it's important because people are supporting social change, but it's also social, so people network within the events themselves.
Yeah, it is fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun event. Yeah. So tell me now, so how did your own journey, did you start out in corporate, or were you always entrepreneurial, or how did you end up in this particular business or setup, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I really started out in government, but which you would argue could never be entrepreneurial, but the actual agencies that I worked for in government were entrepreneurial. That one was I'm from Perth, and I worked for an agency called Events Corp, which is the government's major international events arm. So we bid for major international events and hosted major international events.
Oh, you would have to be pretty entrepreneurial and commercial.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I worked for the Perth Mint with the Sydney Olympic licensing program, and again that we had to innovate and be entrepreneurial with that, which is what brought me to Sydney.
Right. Okay.
So after the Olympics, I worked with DDB Worldwide Communications, a large agency, and it was at that time in 2002 that I was pretty restless, and I wanted to really think about having a career path that's more purposeful.
I think a lot of people are feeling that, particularly right now. You have sort of a vision or a want to fulfill in a different way, and so many people are struggling with how to do that. And
very hard. Very hard. There's this notion of going from struggle to success and success to significance, and when you work in this field, you're like a magnet for people who want to go from success to significance.
Oh, I know, yeah.
So that purpose piece is really, it doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to a lot. So that happened to me back in 2002, and I started doing some pro bono work for a couple that fed Sydney's homeless, and was a little frustrated with the lack of accountability, etc., and then joined Social Ventures Australia, which is like a venture philanthropy.
And was that a big move? Was that a sort of an actual job move where you went to work for them? It was a job
move.
Okay, so it was a big career move there.
It was a career move, but SVA, as it's known, it has a very commercial orientation, and it provides strategic funding, long-term funding and strategic support for mid-size non-profit organisations. Mainly working in the high net worth market, who support the ventures that SVA worked with. And it's towards the end of my time at SVA, I recognise that if philanthropy is done really thoughtfully, it can be so joyful.
And more powerful.
Incredibly,
more powerful.
Profoundly.
That's why I think I really connected with you, because I saw what you were doing and thought, wow, that is the future of connecting the people who have with the people who have not in a very, very fun and fulfilling way.
That's
where both win.
It is.
Without either being feeling disempowered or
absolutely
funny about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's this alchemy that happens when you're able to connect the right people with the right resources to the right projects. And that idea of it being joyful really comes from the idea that they're getting so much more back than they're giving, and invariably they do. The story you hear time and time again is, God, I feel like I've given just a bit, but yet I've received
so much.
And it is interesting because when you listen to conversations about people who do this sort of stuff, they go very deep, very personal, very quickly about how it's affected their lives and added another dimension to.
Well, it probably cracks them wide open, so all of a sudden they're able to go that deep.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the power of the funding network events is they meet social entrepreneurs, people working in the cracks of society that ordinarily don't get any light shone on them at all. So you don't get to meet them. They're coming out of the western suburbs or deep within regional areas. And they're heroes. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the word heroes, but these guys are tackling persistent
they're the real entrepreneurs,
problems.
Actually.
They're doing it on a smell of an oily rag, and they're being very tenacious and very innovative
and the
about
hustle
what they're doing.
They have to do it, to make it work.
I know, they're incredible human beings. So when you get four of those lined up telling their stories, and then an audience who has a propensity to give in some way, it's a very powerful combination.
So talk to me about, because I'm always interested as well, the jump particularly from, working for someone else, because I've done this and I've had a few other women on the show. I mean, you were with the government, and although it was entrepreneurial, how scary was it in that moment where you realised your vision was so much bigger than this working for someone else, and you had to create this? Because I would imagine you went through that feeling of going, I have to do this. How did you get through that moment of there would have been fear, I'm sure, around creating what you have created.
Yeah.
How do you get through that? How do you make the step up to the plate and say,
I think mine was a very long transition, to be honest.
Okay. That's good to know, though, because we think, we see you now and we think, oh, she went from there to there. And what I want people to understand is the journey is never linear.
It's never linear, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think when I first made the transition from the government corporate into the sort of philanthropic non-profit sector, I was volunteering to begin with, so that was the first step of the transition, to put my toe in the water and get a feel for what it was like. Once I actually got a feel and really got a sense of, I just work with brilliant people. You know, the social entrepreneurs are amazing. The funders that are attracted to this sort of work are incredible. They're just good people. So it was relatively easy for me to slide into, to the sort of non-profit philanthropy sector as a career choice. Yeah. But it was also an organisation like Social Ventures Australia is very innovative. It's risk oriented. It tests and innovates all the time. So that was really stimulating. So when I finished it at SVA and I heard about the funding network, it was very easy for me just to make that jump and say, right, I think we should set this up. But I didn't do it. I knew instinctively that it would work, but I also knew that for this to really get traction, we need to be national. But in order for us to be national, we can't just put on an event and think people will come. So we spent 18 months laying the foundations and building a network to begin with. Before we did the very...
And how did you do that? Because that's, a lot of people say that. They say, oh, we laid foundations and we built networks. But the how of that, like, how did you get started with that and build the sort of tribe, if you like? Or, was it an online thing? Or
no. It was
offline?
All very offline, very face-to-face.
Yeah.
So we did a whole lot of community. I set up a national steering committee. And we did a whole lot of community consultation in Sydney, Melbourne and Perth, spoke to business leaders, spoke to non-profit organisations, philanthropic organisations, and we tested our vision. And our vision was, what if we had a model that unites people around contributing back into community, whether that's a social entrepreneur or a funder or a large corporate. So we tested this vision, we ran some briefing sessions, and then we ran 3 pilot events in each of those markets last year to really show the model in action, because we could talk about the philosophy and the vision. Yeah, but you need to actually show the implementation. So it was a lot of work. It was very collaborative. We did the pilot period and the consultation with the support of AMP, Macquarie Group, Lottery West, and a bunch of individual funders who bought into this idea that we should democratise giving in Australia. We're an incredibly wealthy nation. We're an incredibly generous nation, despite people saying we don't give like the Americans or the English. We don't give as much as they do. But we volunteer a huge amount. The average Australian does give a lot per capita.
And that should be counted for as well. I mean, the actual time that people give and giving is about more than the money, as we were talking about earlier. So if we have more models like the funding network that can play the role as an enabler, as a catalyst to bring those two together, I think that will generate so much more funding into the sector. Because what I love about this as well is I often see on forums that I'm on, or places that people are asking. A lot of people who are social entrepreneurs are asking the question online, mainly where I'm seeing, how do I be a social entrepreneur and actually get the funding necessary to be that, and how do I guess we all have to survive financially as well. So in the early days of what you were doing, how did the financial end of the model work in terms of, you needed to obviously get paid, there's money involved in setting up. Did you raise capital for that? Because there was the money end as well.
That's right, exactly, So mainly through philanthropic grants. So both from individuals, corporates, and in WA from the WA government. So we did a first round of raising the funds to cover both the consultation and the startup costs of of the funding
So it is
network.
treated, it's very much treated like, it is like a startup.
It
It's
is.
like any company that you start up. So anyone trying to do something like this anywhere in the world, they've got to think about it as an actual company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've got to have all of the governance and operational infrastructure. And even more so, you've got to have much more compliance as a non-profit
than normal,
organisation. And you've got to have the same sort of governance structures in place. So in addition to raising the funds, we had to secure a board. We've got leadership councils in Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. So there's a whole infrastructure that sits under this. We're predominantly philanthropically funded in terms of covering our lean operational costs, but we also have self-generated revenue, and we want to build up that self-generated revenue so the model's more sustainable.
What kind of, when you say self-generated revenue, tell me a bit about that.
So our membership, if you're a member of TFN, you can put forward charities to pitch at events.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And that's part of this whole egalitarian.
That's the community building and the whole, so everybody can, so somebody who's just a member could say, you know what, I came across this guy who's doing this thing, I think it's amazing, I'd like to put him forward for a pitch night.
And we don't have tentacles into the whole community, so we don't know where these great people reside. So if we can empower an army of people to go out into their local communities and put forward these people, that's
even better.
It's a fantastic way to do it. It really amplifies the impact. So getting back to the membership, it's only $100, and we wanted to keep that price point low because we want to build a movement. We want to get as many people involved as possible. So it's $100 membership's part of the revenue. We take a 10% contribution of funds raised on the night towards our costs, and it's $30 to attend an event.
Oh, that's right.
To help cover the costs of
the event. And everything,
yeah.
And any plans for other revenue lines that you can sort of think of, or do you foresee other revenue lines coming in to continue to expand the model?
We do. We're still sort of strategizing around that.
Yeah.
I think that there are a couple of other ways we can do that without going off mission.
Because that's
really easy to do.
Really, very good. So tell me a little bit, obviously, I mean, you must be totally lit up inside that this has happened, and your vision is you can see it coming to life. Because so many people do have vision, even if it's hidden inside of them, but they never really get the chance to sort of sit where you are right now. So what would you say to anyone out there who sort of feels totally on their own, has this burning thing inside of them and doesn't really know what to do with it? What would you say is the first step? Is it networking with people like you? Is it,
I think if someone's got a vision of something, they really need to be able to articulate it. They need to be able to articulate it in a way that people understand. They can understand what the potential of the model is, what the impact potentially can be of that, and then start testing it. I mean, this model.
Go out and talk to people.
Go and talk to people. The whole reason why this got up so quickly and is flourishing quite quickly is that we got buy-in from people, 2 years ago, and have continued those conversations and continued to try and get them involved. I think you've got to, really believe in it yourself, have an ability to articulate it, and stay true to that vision. And really just give it a go. You don't know, and I
just
think
ask.
Fear is a big issue.
Of course,
But I think that anyone can get involved in, say, with this model, anyone can get involved in making a tangible difference in their community. I think we've all got the capacity to do that. I think in this field, I mean, what you need is empathy, and I think empathy is a really important quality in business. It's not just in the non-profit sector. And if you can kind of walk in someone else's shoes, I think that puts you in a really good position to be able to then to bring them on the journey with you.
So what would you say, I mean, a lot of the audience that watch this show are entrepreneurial women, and I'm always saying, I think we talked off air, that, a lot of women would say to me, oh, I don't really need to make that much money, or, I'm just happy doing this or whatever. But they also have, when I talk to them about the potential of what they could do if their companies were bigger assets, or I sort of say, well, you could start contributing to greater causes, and you could, I mean, this is obviously from a financial point of view. How would it make you feel if a whole movement of women started to think that way and actually started to get involved in this?
Well, women...
Yeah, we're natural givers, you see.
Money's a means to an end.
Yeah.
It depends on what you want to do with it. About 5 years ago, started an angel investing network in Melbourne and in Sydney, made up of there were about 48 women who each pooled their funds and contributed to about 12 charities. But over the course of the year, they came together 6 times over the course of the year and talked about how they could support these organisations and then shared their stories, etc. Women collaborate so brilliantly.
They do.
You know,
we
all
do.
know that.
We do.
Yeah, we all know that. And they're an incredibly powerful force. So I think that it would be, we've got a lot of female members.
Yes.
And I think that you don't need to think about, I'm going to make money and then give back. There's some really smart ways about integrating social change within their businesses as well.
Yeah, that's another aspect to really think about.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think some entrepreneurs, they'll feel, because I know some of them sort of feel, you know what, I am pedaling so hard just to make it myself, that I just can't even think about how I can, integrate this into my business or whatever. So what are some of the simple little ways that a small business can integrate some social ways of giving back?
Look, I think a lot of it is about reputation in terms of growth, and people are attracted to organisations that have integrity, that they can see are genuine about making the sort of contribution within their means, within their capacity. So some small ways is they can do matched giving. So any of their staff, they could match that giving. They could host on things on behalf of charities.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
They could do volunteering.
Just offer up their office space or something for a night, or do volunteering. Or,
Or if they have a particular skill, or their staff have a particular skill, contribute that. Mentor an organisation. Often social entrepreneurs are really brilliant at coming up with ideas. So they can potentially...
can offer you some help as well.
Yeah,
because they're going to get a lot of hustle, like we said earlier.
Absolutely.
Innovative thinking and hustle.
Absolutely. And make small contributions, whatever's within the sort of the means of the organisation, because it's very fulfilling and just adds to, I know if you're pedaling a million miles an hour and starting up a new business, but it can also be incredibly energising.
Yeah, it could take you away from the kind of struggle a little bit too.
Exactly.
So Lisa, this is such a beautiful, huge mission. Tell me, what's the big vision? Like, where do you really want to take this? It's a year or two in now. What's the big vision of where you want to take it?
Look, I think long term, the funding network can be a hub. It can be a hub where people can connect to each other. They can learn. We're running in every state, and we're empowering people in each state to run and own the funding network
as a community.
As a community in each state. I think that we will gather so much knowledge through the work that we do, because for each event we get sort of up to 30 nominations for each event, through which we shortlist to 8 and we choose 4. And we have selection panels made up of members to choose those 4. So we're getting a lot of intelligence about what's happening in the community. All of them have to do an impact report 12 months later, which we send through to the donors from the night. So we will start aggregating what are some of the really urgent issues, what are some of the themes. So our website can really be a fantastic portal for anyone who wants to start to get involved in the social change area, anyone who wants to invest in it. So I think that in addition to doing the live crowd face-to-face funding events,
you can do some online stuff.
A lot of stuff online.
That's going to be so powerful. And I just love the whole concept that this is how, people always say, well, what can I do? Well, you can come along to a funding night and you can just see what's happening out there, and you can just be part of the community.
That's right.
Even if people who aren't giving anything yet, you can still go and still be part of the community and start to see what you can do.
Absolutely.
And meet people who are doing amazing things.
That's
like
right.
You.
Well, it's a forum where you can just put a toe in the water. It's it's a very light touch way to see whether that's something that's
you would like to
of
do
interest.
More of.
Exactly.
Well, look, as I said, I was blown away by the night that I went along to, and I was really keen to have you on the show and just show what what one person really can do in this space, and to inspire other people to really think about this space and what they can do.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's one person with a lot of help.
A lot of help, yeah. That's the key to running any business, I think.
Absolutely.
The team, yeah. Exactly. So thanks so much for sharing those insights with us, and I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, no, you're absolutely welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And don't forget that you can catch me later this week on my podcast, Wealth Unplugged, where I'll be giving you some key takeouts from my chat with Lisa today. So until next week, have a great week, and we'll see you then.